Imagine a maximum security prison in the heart of New York City. An ordinary night, the surveillance cameras are down. The guards are asleep. In one of the cells sits a man who knew too much and saw too much, who ruined too many lives with his love of money. In the morning, he will be found dead in his cell. This man's name is Jeffrey Epstein. Today, we'll explore a story that sounds like a conspiracy theory, yet it's almost entirely made up of confirmed facts. A story about the trafficking of underage girls, billions of dollars, bribes, politicians, princes, and financiers, and about how one man got away with things for decades that would have put an ordinary person behind bars for life, with no one stopping him. Welcome to Paradoria. Enjoy the show. For a long time, Jeffrey Epstein's story sounded too wild to be true. A private island allegedly visited by the most powerful people on the planet. Hundreds of underage victims, millions of dollars, shady deals with the justice system, and a death in prison with the cameras turned off. For years, all of this was dismissed as conspiracy talk, until the facts began to surface, slowly and reluctantly. In January, a New York court released nearly 1,000 pages of documents related to Epstein's case and his inner circle. These weren't any client lists, as many hastily claimed. They were transcripts of testimony, materials from civil lawsuits, and mentions of people who had crossed paths with Epstein in one way or another. Not all of them are criminals, not all are implicated, but the sheer scale of his social circle raises questions about just how deeply Epstein was embedded in the global elite. Most importantly, these documents once again confirmed the crimes were real, the victims were numerous, and this story is far more horrifying than any myth. If we strip away the legends, Epstein's early biography looks genuinely bizarre. He was a bright student who graduated early, with a strong grasp of mathematics and physics. He attended several universities, but never completed a degree. At just 21 years old, without a diploma, he somehow landed a job as a math teacher at a prestigious private school, where the children of the extremely wealthy and influential studied. This moment is often seen as the first puzzle in his biography, but it was here that he made the connections that would change his life. At one parent-teacher meeting, the father of one of his students introduced Jeffrey to Alan Greenberg, the founder of the investment bank Bear Stearns. Greenberg saw talent in the young Epstein and hired him. Slowly, Jeffrey transformed from a schoolteacher into a financier. How he made this leap so quickly, without formal education, remains a mystery to this day. The key figure in his rise was billionaire Leslie Wexner, founder and owner of the L Brands Corporation, including the Victoria's Secret brand. In the 1980s and 1990s, Wexner ranked among the richest people in the U.S., holding the 6th spot. Epstein impressed him with his charm and mathematical acumen, becoming his trusted manager and effectively gaining control over vast financial flows. In 1991, Wexner granted Epstein nearly unlimited power of attorney, the right to buy and sell real estate, enter into deals, and take out loans in his name. From that point on, Epstein gained entry into the highest echelons of society. It was during this period that he acquired a luxurious mansion on Manhattan worth tens of millions of dollars, a property he, as later revealed, essentially never paid for. The exact nature of that transaction still raises questions today. Around that time, Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of British media tycoon Robert Maxwell, entered Epstein's life. Their relationship remains ambiguous. Were they friends, partners, lovers, or accomplices? But one thing is clear from victim testimonies and court verdicts. Maxwell was far more than just Epstein's companion. She played a pivotal role in his criminal network. It was she who introduced him to influential figures, including Prince Andrew, and it was she, according to survivors, who participated in recruiting underage girls and transporting them to that infamous island. In 2022, Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison for enticing minors into prostitution and facilitating human trafficking. Epstein's early crimes didn't appear large-scale at first. The scheme was simple, and that made it especially horrifying. He targeted teenage girls, most often from poor or dysfunctional families. They were offered money, usually a few $100s, for a massage. No formal contracts, all cash transactions. When a girl arrived at his home, the massage quickly escalated into harassment and then sexual assault. Many victims recalled not fully understanding what was happening, feeling trapped and cornered. Over time, the scheme grew more complex. Girls were paid to bring their friends. The system expanded like a financial pyramid, except its foundation was shattered lives, not money. At some point, Epstein's mansion in Florida and his Manhattan residence began attracting too much attention. That's when he purchased the private island of Little St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands. He bought it in 1998 for approximately $8 million. The island became his retreat, a place to escape prying eyes. His private Boeing jet, later dubbed the Lolita Express by the press, made regular flights there, transporting both influential guests and underage victims. The exact number of girls who passed through this system remains unknown to this day. Estimates range from hundreds to possibly thousands. The paradox lies in how Epstein presented himself publicly, a respectable philanthropist. He donated millions to science, socialized with prominent researchers, and funded studies. Among those who attended his events was, for instance, Stephen Hawking. After the documents were published, numerous absurd rumors and hoaxes emerged, none supported by evidence. We only know that Hawking participated in a scientific conference organized by Epstein, and there is no data suggesting his involvement in any crimes. This is an important point. Mere acquaintance or attendance doesn't constitute proof of guilt. Yet among all the names mentioned, one stands out with almost no remaining doubt: Prince Andrew, son of Queen Elizabeth II. The key figure here is Virginia Giuffre, née Roberts. She grew up in a poor family, became homeless as a teenager, living on the streets, making her an ideal target for human traffickers. At 17, she was introduced to Epstein and Maxwell. According to her account, Epstein forced her into sexual acts not only with himself, but also with other powerful men, including Prince Andrew. It was she who insisted on taking a photograph showing the prince with his arm around her waist. This image later became one of the most damning pieces of evidence in his story. When the accusations became public, Prince Andrew gave an interview to the BBC in which he attempted to defend himself. He claimed not to remember the woman, suggested the photo might be fake, and argued he couldn't have been in London at the time specified. The interview had the opposite effect. His explanations sounded unconvincing, and his reputation was irreparably damaged. Ultimately, he was stripped of public duties, deprived of military titles, and effectively removed from active royal family life. Two other names that frequently surface in connection with Epstein are Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Both were indeed acquainted with him. Clinton flew on Epstein's plane several times, as confirmed by flight logs. He denies ever visiting the island, although Virginia Giuffre claimed to have seen him there. There are no direct accusations or evidence linking him to Epstein's crimes. The situation with Trump is similar. They were friends, often photographed together, and Trump once publicly remarked that Epstein liked beautiful women, including younger ones. Whether he knew just how young remains an unanswered question. Again, it's crucial to separate facts from speculation. There is no evidence proving Trump's involvement in Epstein's crimes. Law enforcement first took serious interest in Epstein in 2005, when the mother of a 14-year-old girl filed a police report. Searches were conducted at his Florida mansion. Evidence was found, and victim testimonies aligned. The case appeared solid. Legally, Epstein faced decades in prison, but in 2008, he reached a plea deal with prosecutors. He admitted guilt to minimal charges and received a laughably light sentence, about a year in prison under extremely lenient conditions. Epstein's lawyer in this case was Alan Dershowitz, who was later accused by Virginia Giuffre of having been forced into a sexual relationship with him when she was 17. Dershowitz denies all allegations, and no court verdict was ever delivered on this specific claim. After his release, Epstein attempted to return to his former life, but his reputation was already ruined. More and more victims began filing civil lawsuits. In 2019, he was arrested again, this time on federal charges of sex trafficking. The chances of avoiding serious punishment were virtually non-existent. In July of that year, he was found in his cell showing signs of a suicide attempt. He was placed under observation, but only for a few days. On the night of August 9 to 10, he was left alone in his cell. Guards failed to conduct routine checks, and the surveillance cameras were out of order. In the morning, Epstein was found dead. The official ruling, suicide. Whether to believe this conclusion is a personal choice. On one hand, negligence, poor prison conditions, and systemic flaws in the American penal system are well documented. On the other, there are too many suspicious coincidences. And most importantly, with his death, the man who knew too much disappeared. He knew who visited the island, who used his services, and who looked the other way. Many questions remain unanswered. The recent release of new files in the Epstein case added not so much sensation as uncomfortable clarity. The published court materials began to repeatedly reveal specific names and concrete situations that had previously only been hinted at. In the testimonies of Virginia Giuffre and other survivors, Prince Andrew is mentioned again and again, with descriptions of his encounters with underage girls and the circumstances in which Maxwell literally handed young women from hand to hand. Bill Clinton's name appears, not as a defendant, but as someone who, according to a victim, was on the island surrounded by young girls. References to Alan Dershowitz surface. In the documents, he is listed not only as Epstein's lawyer, but also as someone named by a survivor. There are accounts of Epstein bragging about his connections to Donald Trump and claiming he could solve problems through influential acquaintances. Detailed records describe flights on the Lolita Express, including dates, routes, and passengers, among them businessmen, politicians, and celebrities such as Michael Jackson, David Copperfield, Stephen Hawking, Leonardo DiCaprio, Bruce Willis, Angelina Jolie, Eminem, Robert Downey Jr., and many others. The documents themselves stress an important point. Being listed does not equal being accused. Yet the totality of testimonies, photographs, flight logs, and correspondence paints an extremely troubling picture of an environment in which Epstein felt completely untouchable. He was confident that even if someone spoke out, the system would either not want to, or would be unable to, bring the case to justice. In retrospect, this sense of total impunity now appears to be one of the most alarming facts to emerge from all the released materials. Epstein's story is not proof that all elites are the same, nor is it an excuse for corruption anywhere. Rather, it is a reminder of how dangerous a system can be when money and connections allow someone to evade accountability for years. Ultimately, Epstein ended up in prison. Maxwell received a real sentence. Journalists were able to publish the materials, and courts were able to pursue cases against high-profile individuals. This is an imperfect, creaky system, but it is still a functioning one. Perhaps the main takeaway is this: without public pressure, without attention, and without the willingness to ask uncomfortable questions, such stories will repeat themselves again and again. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments. See you next time.